Hello again, everybody. This is Jesse here, and I'd like to welcome you to another Spirit of Prophecy video. And in this video, we're going to be dealing with part 2 of the 70 weeks of Daniel. And in part 1, we just basically went over the very first verse. And so now, what we're going to do is we're mainly going to be covering verse 25 in this video, and a portion of verse 26, which is this portion right here. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. Okay. And because this right here is a whole nother subject, and that's going to take a long time to go over, because there is a lot in this portion of the text right here. So I figured we would focus mainly on this portion of the prophecy right here, and then in part 3 we'll focus on this, and then, which is also part and partial, if you understand what parallelism is, this portion right here is actually part and partial of this portion right here. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So basically, in short, we have this 70 weeks prophecy, okay? But also what is added with this prophecy is events that are going to happen after this prophecy comes to a fulfillment, okay? And that's where this section comes in, right here. And also the parallel version of that is right here. So we're going to be getting into this in the next video. But in this video, we're going to basically deal with, I don't think it's boring, but maybe some of you might, but we're going to basically deal with figuring out the starting point of this prophecy and leading up to and culminating with the 69th week. And there's a lot of, there's not really much to say beyond the first 49 years of this prophecy, because, for the most part, besides the whole desecration of the temple by Artaxerxes, for the most part, the 434 years was very relatively quiet, okay? It was just quiet. There wasn't really much going on. That's why some have coined, the phrase after the 49 years, the quiet times, and these types of things. So let's go ahead and get started. And before I get started, I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Keith Campshafer at Uncontrolled Opposition for giving me permission to use his chart, which is accurate. Okay, it is an accurate chart explaining this prophecy, and it was so well organized that I had to ask him privately if I could use his chart for my study for you guys and these types of things. And I will put a link to his study of Daniel 70 weeks in the description box below. Go and check it out. You will be, I believe you will be blessed by that video. But I wanted to say thank you to Keith Campshafer at Uncontrolled Opposition's YouTube channel for letting me use some of his graphics. within this video. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, we left off, and I'm just going to read this whole prophecy again. We left off with verse 25, but let's go ahead and read it again. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint, which means to smear, anoint, or spread a liquid, to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, 62 weeks. All you got to do is, and what's very unique here is, this prophecy is all one block of time. But what the angel revealed to Daniel here is he split this prophecy up in 3 different segments. And these 3 different segments are the 7 weeks. Following the 7 weeks are the 62 weeks, which is 62 weeks. And then following the 62 weeks, we have the 1 week. Okay? 3 different segments of this prophecy, all in the same continuous block of time. It's just divided into 3 parts. Okay? There is no gap in between either one of these parts. It's all continuous. And I think God did that basically to give the people pointers and markers along the way, so that those that understood the prophecy would be able to understand who the Messiah was when he was to be revealed. Okay? But anyways, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. And these troublous times are recorded in the Bible, by the way. We're going to be looking at that, and these types of things. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. But not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And he, now bear in mind, this he is not this prince right here, but it is this prince right here. Okay? So many people in the futurist lie will attribute this he as the Antichrist. But you got to look at this very carefully, because look at this verse right here. Alright? I'm going to read this verse here, and I'm going to kind of go over this very fast, because I don't want to spoil it too much. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay. I want to explain something here. This is this is just plain old simple logic. I'm going to say this flat out, that this prince right here is not the Antichrist, and this he is not this prince, neither is this he the Antichrist. This he is the Messiah, the Prince. This is a different prince. Okay? Now, look at this very carefully. Unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. Okay? And 62 weeks. You have 7 weeks, you have 62 weeks. 7 plus 62 is 69. This is how simple this is, folks. This is how simple it is to get your mind washed from the deceptions that are twisting this prophecy. Okay? So, now when you look at this verse here, and it's after 62 weeks. So the 7 weeks are fulfilled, the 62 weeks are fulfilled. What comes after 7 plus 62, which is 69? What comes after 69? 70. So after the 62 weeks, where are we at? We are at the 70th week. Okay? So somewhere after the 62 weeks are finished, the Messiah is cut off. So the Messiah is cut off within the 70th week. This word here explains the whole thing. It says after, not at, because many people will conclude that the Messiah is cut off at the 69th week. And therefore there is that gap between the 69th and the 70th week, putting the 70th week into the future. That is not the case. The word is after, not at 62 weeks. It's after 62 weeks. Okay? So I just want to make this point clear. And we're going to get into this because this prince right here, again, I repeat, is not the he that a lot of these futurist dispensational teachers are teaching you. Chuck Missler, for one. This he is the Messiah, right here. Not the people of the prince. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Now, a prophetic day equals 1 calendar year. You can see 2 examples of this in Numbers 14:34, which states, "After the number of the days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and you shall know my breach of promise." Okay. And Ezekiel 4:6, "And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year." Now, what's very unique about these time prophecies is they are all centered around iniquity. Okay? Now, this is just something I not too long ago thought of when I was putting this together. If this day for a year, because it seems like everything in context with this day for a year is bearing your iniquities, okay, your sins, and these types of things. It's dealing with sin. So every time you have like a period of time that is dealing with something of sinfulness, you add this each day for a year. Okay, another example would be, the man of sin, the lawless one, who rules for a time, times, and half a time. This little horn, he thinks to change times and laws. He rules for 42 months, times, and half a time, 1,260 days. Sin is connected to that time prophecy. So, therefore, it seems fitting to add 1 day for a year to the 1,260 days. Okay. The same thing here is you have each day for a year. And also it is repeated in Ezekiel 4:6. I just thought that was a little interesting little nugget to share there. Now, obviously, this 70 weeks is dealing with to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity. Okay, so here you have sins, iniquity. You have these two words in common. And so therefore it is, I believe it is rightfully so to put this day for a year principle into this 70 weeks prophecy. 70 times 7 is 490 days. A day for a year is 490 prophetic days, which is 490 calendar years. Okay? So again, a prophetic day equals 1 calendar year. So therefore, 1 week is 7 days, which equals 7 years. Okay? And just some simple math here. So you have 7 weeks times 7 days, which equals 49 days. Day for a year, you get 49 years. And to understand the whole score chart, you have 1 score, which is equal to 20, 2 score is equal to 40, 3 score is equal to 60, 4 score is 80, etc., etc. Okay, 5 score would be 100. You always multiply it by 2. Okay. 62 weeks times 7 days is 434 days, which a day for a year gives you 434 years. Okay, it's just simple math, adding, subtracting, multiplying. That's all it is. So now that we have this established, this prophecy is a 490-year prophecy divided in 3 different sections. You have the 49 years, the 434 years, and the 7 years, equaling up to 490 years. All of this is in one block consecutive period of time. There is no gap in between either one of these segments that is described in Daniel 9:25. Now, when we go back and look at verse 25 again, it says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem." Now, this is one thing that some people may get confused, because a lot of people like to think that this is talking about the rebuilding of the temple. Okay? No. This is talking about restoring, magistrates, the political laws and judgments and statutes, the political, the religious state of things, the political state of things. It's basically restoring, the society or the nation of Jerusalem as a whole. That's what this is. This is not specifically pinpointed at the temple. This is a commandment. That word commandment actually does mean decree. So this is a decree to rebuild Jerusalem. This is not, to rebuild the city-state, to rebuild its political offices and these types of things, to rebuild its means of living and these types of things, to revive it. Okay? And so when we look at that word restore, go back down here, it means to return or turn back. To turn back, to cause to return, bring back. To bring back, allow to return, put back, draw back, give back, restore, relinquish, and give in payment. So it's a restoration, it's a return. Okay? It's a right of return, basically. And this is what this commandment was. And this commandment was given, if you paid attention to my very first video about Daniel's 70th week, was given during the time of the Medo-Persian Empire, which would have been, and I haven't gotten into this study yet, which would have been the the second beast in Daniel chapter 7, with the bear with the three ribs in his mouth and raised up on one side, which correlates with the chest and arms of silver. This is the Medo-Persian Empire that this decree was commanded. Okay? And the king that issued this decree was a king by the name of Artaxerxes. Okay? And we're going to get into that here in just a few brief moments. So here we go. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. Segment 1. 62 weeks. Segment 2. Adding these two together because they're all in one block of time, you get 69 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. Okay, there's that. We're basically going to be covering the entire verse 25 here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this commandment. Before we do, we're going to look at this chart. Okay, and then we're going to go to the Bible and get some more proof of this. Let's scroll up a little bit here so you can see this better. Okay. So when you look at this chart here, again, thank you so much, Keith Campshafer, for letting me use this chart. Artaxerxes' decree to restore Jerusalem, it was in 458 BC, so you start counting, so you don't count 458, you count 457, okay? Because the first year is overlapped. So you know, just like how, because once this decree is issued, you're already in the 457th year. That's why you don't start 458, 457, 456. You start 457, 456, so on and so on. Okay? So, this decree to restore Jerusalem was in 458 BC, and this is when the countdown started. So, the commandment or decree was issued, and this is week 1. So from 458 to 450, 457, 456, 455, 54, 53, 52, 51, 50. That's 7 years. 7 minus 457 gives you 450, and that's the second week. Okay, 450 minus 7 gives you 443. And so on. The third week starts. Then the fourth week, the fifth week, all subtracting 7 until you get to the 7th week, which is the 49th year. So you have 49 years past in 409 BC, and that's when the wall was built. We're going to get into that, but this is just a quick overview of this chart of how easy it is to just use simple subtraction. You know, I mean, that's all you got to do. And so this is, you know, and the city and the wall was built in troublous times, and we're going to get into that. The Bible does talk about that in the book of Nehemiah. So, but I wanted to enlarge this here so you can see this rather easily. Okay, you got to remember there is no 0 year either. So at the end of the BC era, at 1 BC, the following year you start at 1 AD. Okay, not 1 BC 0 1 AD, because there is no 0 year. You just go from 1 BC to 1 AD. Okay. But again, this is just simple math. Okay. And again, this is an overlap here in 458, which means you start counting backwards. You start the week at 457. Okay, you start subtracting from 457. Because once 458 begins, it's just like, okay, here's a perfect example. All right. I'm 34 years old. Okay. I'm 34 years old. And I turned 34 on April the 9th. Now, technically, that means I'm not 34 anymore. I have entered into my 35th year. Okay? You understand what I'm getting at? So you don't count the exact year. You count from, the 457th year, which is the first week of the prophecy of Daniel. Okay? So that's why you subtract 7 from 457 and you get all these numbers here. Each week passes is 7 years. So you just subtract 7 years from the next year and this is what you get. Okay? That's it. It's just that simple. I know it sounds a little complicated, but it really isn't when you just think of it as simple adding and subtracting. So the commandment decree, 457, years past 49 years, we come to 409 BC. And all of this information can be found in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Starting in Ezra chapter 7, verse 1. Kind of shorten this up a little bit. Okay. 7:1. Now after these sayings, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Seraiah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah. Moving on down to verse 6, it just goes over all the genealogies of Ezra and these types of things in the previous 5 verses. This Ezra went up from Babylon, and again you got to remember Babylon was a conquered kingdom at this time, and he was a ready scribe in the law of Moses, which the Lord God of Israel had given, and the king granted him all his request, according to the hand of the Lord his God upon him. And there went up some of the children of Israel, and of the priests, and the Levites, and the singers, and the porters, and the Nethinims unto Jerusalem, in the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king. And he came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. For upon the 1st day of the 1st month began he to go up from Babylon, and on the 1st day of the 5th month came he to Jerusalem, according to the good hand of his God upon him. Now, this is where, again, if you really want to go over the calculations of the months and these types of things, Uncontrolled Opposition does a really good job at that point. I don't really have that much time to go into that fine detail, and that's why his video of the 70 weeks is going to be posted in the description box below. I advise you to go check it out. Very interesting stuff. Okay? And follow along with the scriptures he's given you. For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord, and to do it, and to teach in Israel statutes and judgments. Now this is the copy of the letter that the king Artaxerxes gave unto Ezra the priest, the scribe, even a scribe of the words of the commandments of the Lord, and of his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace, and at such a time. I make a decree that all they of the people of Israel, and of his priests and Levites in my realm, which are minded of their own free will, to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee. Forasmuch as thou art sent of the king, and of his 7 counselors, to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the law of thy God, which is in thine hand. Okay. What did the beginning of the prophecy state? 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. Who was Daniel's people? It was Judah. It was the Jews. Okay. and Jerusalem, according to the law of thy God which is in thine hand. And now, Ezra, after the wisdom of thy God that is in thy hand, set magistrates and judges. So not only do we have a religious restoration, we also have the political restoration. The restoration of Jerusalem as a city-state once again. Now, Ezra, after the wisdom of thy God that is in thine hand, set magistrates and judges, and this is this decree, okay, which may judge all the people that are beyond the river, all such as know the laws of thy God, and teach ye them that know them not. And whosoever will not do the law of thy God and the law of the king, let judgment be executed speedily upon him, whether it be unto death, or to banishment, or to confiscation of goods, or to imprisonment. So here we have basically a judgment hall, essentially. Okay. So again, this was all a restoration of the capital. The capital judgments and these types of things. The restoration of all the political and religious systems of Jerusalem. This was not about just the temple. This decree that Artaxerxes made here was about the restoration of the city of Jerusalem as a whole. Okay? And so this is that commandment that started in 457 BC. Or 458 BC. Counting backwards from 457. Now, if we go back up to the chart here, we just read the decree. And so now, between the first and the seventh week, we have something that is stated in Daniel. If we go right back up here, the street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. Okay? And so what's really unique about this is Nehemiah paints a very unique picture. Okay? Because you're going to see when this wall was built. And it was during troublous times. Believe me. I mean, wait till you read this. This is in Nehemiah 4:1 through 4:23 and Nehemiah 7:1 through 4. Okay? So let's go ahead and read it. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth, and took great indignation, and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee. For they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up, and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth. and conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Can you see the troublous times here that these people were under, trying to rebuild this city? Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God, and set a watch against them day and night because of them. And Judah said, The strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, They shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them, and slay them, and cause the work to cease. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, From all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. Therefore set I in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places, I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and rose up, and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, Be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. And it came to pass, when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons. And the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. So, with swords in their hands, and the other hands being put to the plow, they were building the wall, and they had to deal with fugitives. They had to deal with their enemies at the same time. Now, can you not see the troublous times here with this wall being built? Is this not reminiscent of what we just read in Daniel 9:25? Okay. They which builded on the wall, and they that bear burdens, with those that laded, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, every one had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, The work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. In what place therefore ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. Likewise at the same time said I unto the people, Let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us, and labor on the day. That in the night they may be a guard to us, and labor on the day. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving that every one put them off for washing. There was hardly any night that went by where they got any rest, because they were trying to get the wall built, but at the same time, they were dealing with a big-time headache with the Ammonites, the Arabians, and they were dealing with these people at the same time trying to get this wall built, trying to get this city restored. Okay. It's kind of unique when you look at this in a spiritual context within the body of Christ as well. Okay. Here we have a work to do, And yet we are bombarded on each and every side by every wind of doctrine. Okay? Think of that as the Ammonites and the Arabians just constantly coming at us from the left and from the right and from the front and from the back. So therefore we always have to have our swords by our sides, and we have to still pursue the work that our Father in heaven has given us through the Son. So, I mean, there's a lot of spiritual significances we can pick up on this as well, besides just the physical history of this. So, moving on to Nehemiah chapter 7. We're only going to read the 4 verses here. Now it came to pass, when the wall was built, and I had set up the doors. So the wall was finally built. And I had set up the doors, and the porters, and the singers, and the Levites were appointed. That I gave my brother Hanani and Hananiah, the ruler of the palace, charge over Jerusalem, for he was a faithful man and feared God above many. And I said unto them, Let not the gates of Jerusalem be open until the sun be hot. And while they stand by, let them shut the doors and bar them, and appoint watches of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, every one in his watch, and every one to be over against his house. Now the city was large and great, but the people were few therein, and the houses were not builded. Okay, but the wall was built, the streets were built, the gates were built, the doors were built. Okay, so and this is taken and so Daniel 9:25 makes a threefold distinction in the 70 weeks. A grouping of 7 weeks, 62 weeks, and 1 week. The group of 7 weeks seems to imply that this time, 49 years, is how long it will take to complete the rebuilding of Jerusalem, from 458 to 409 BC. This is supported by the Elephantine Papyri, an ancient fragment which says that in 409 BC Nehemiah was no longer governor of Judah, which seems to support the fact that his work was completed at or by 409 BC. Okay, so for those wanting extra research, this is where you might want to do some more digging and look up this Elephantine Papyri and then search it out for yourselves. You'll find it in there. 409 BC, and Nehemiah was no longer governor of Judah, which seems to support the fact that his work was completed at or by 409 BC. And so now, here we have the chart again. And so 409 BC, the wall is built. And so now 408 BC, the second segment begins. And this is week 8. And then from week 8 all the way, besides the point in time where Antiochus Epiphanes desecrated the temple by erecting a pig on the altar, sacrificing a pig on the altar, there was a lot of quiet times. There was a lot of quiet years here. Okay? And until we get to the point of, we'll kind of look at this a little bit in depth here. So, I mean, basically, as I stated, there was a lot of quiet years here in this second segment. Until we get to the point of 9 BC, And then 4 years after 9 BC, we have 5 BC, which seems to indicate that this was the birth of the Messiah right here. Anywhere between 5 and 4 BC. A lot of evidence point towards 5. Okay. And then from that, you have the 62nd week, or the 66th week right here, which starts in 2 BC, and then this is where it gets a little confusing, because you have the 1 BC, 1 AD split. Then you have the 67th week, which brings you to 6 AD. And then you have the 68th week, which brings you to 13 AD. And then you have the 69th week, which brings you to 20 AD. And then the final week, which starts in 27 AD. Okay, so, but we're going to be looking at the birth of Christ. And this is a very unique, because I didn't include this passage of scripture in here, but I want to direct your attention to this. And this is the Star of Bethlehem, a comet in 5 BC, and the date of the birth of Christ. This is by C.J. Humphreys, Quarterly Journal of the Royal Astronomical Society, Volume 32. And the Star of Bethlehem, a comet in 5 BC, and the date of the birth of Christ. Department of Materials Science and Metallurgy, University of Cambridge, Pembroke Street, Cambridge, yada yada yada, received 1991, June 27th, in original form, 1991, February 6th. We're just going to read the summary here, and here is the link so you can go and click on this and read it yourself. The astronomical and historical evidence suggests that the Star of Bethlehem was a comet which was visible in 5 BC and described in ancient Chinese records. A comet uniquely fits the description in Matthew of a star which newly appeared, traveled slowly through the sky against the star background, and stood over Bethlehem. It is proposed that a remarkable sequence of 3 astronomical events stimulated the journey of the Magi: the triple conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in 7 BC, the massing of the 3 planets Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars in 6 BC, and finally the appearance in 5 BC of the Star of Bethlehem, a comet initially in Capricornus, or the constellation of Capricorn. It is shown that each of these 3 events would have been rich in significance to the Magi, and the combination would have provided a very clear sign that a mighty new king was about to be born in Israel. So you think the Magi had some kind of understanding, possibly, of the 70 weeks prophecy? It's very possible. Then you also have, the prophecy regarding Bethlehem Ephrata, where a young boy would be born, a child would be born, a son would be given. The evidence points to Jesus being born in the period 5 BC, around March 9th to May 4th, probably around Passover time, 5 BC, which would have been our April 13th to April 27th. Birth in the spring is consistent with the account in Luke that there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flock by night. Birth in 5 BC is also consistent with the census of Caesar Augustus. The date of the Nativity presented here enables a new chronology of the life of Christ to be constructed, which is consistent with the available evidence. So, I mean, this is secularism. This is secular science talking about this, and it seems like they have more. It's weird how God uses the unfaithful to bring about something like this. Okay? So here we have, anywhere between March 9th to May 4th of 5 BC, which actually would have started the 4th BC year, because you're already in 5 BC. So that's why you would count at 4 BC. Okay? But in the simple terms, yes, you can say 5 BC. 5 BC to 4 BC, within that frame. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at something else here. Okay? Because there is a lot of confusion, about the month that Jesus was born. Okay? And unanimously, most are agreed that Jesus was not born on December 25th. Okay? Just for the simple fact that, obviously, like what this summary stated here, that the shepherds were keeping their flocks by night and these types of things, so it must have been during the warm season, and these types of things. Winter was past, it was gone, it was done. So, and then there's, people that believe that Jesus was born in September or October. And these types of things. Which would have been in the biblical calendar, September and October would have been either the 6th or the 7th month. I think it's the 6th month. The 6th biblical month would have been our September, October. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at Luke chapter 1. And it really is spelled out quite clearly for us. All we have to do is just use simple logic again and really pay attention to detail, because it's spelled out right there for us. When he was, really the time frame that he was born. So let's go ahead and look at this, starting in Luke 1:10. This is about Zacharias and Elizabeth. Actually, we'll start in verse 7. And they had no child, because that Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years. And it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard. And thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink. And he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And Zacharias said unto the angel, Whereby shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife well stricken in years. So he doubted Gabriel's words that came from God. And the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, and am sent to speak unto thee, and to show thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb and not able to speak, until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. And the people waited for Zacharias, and marveled that he tarried so long in the temple. And when he came out, he could not speak unto them, and they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple. For he beckoned unto them, and remained speechless. And it came to pass that, as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. And after those days his wife Elizabeth conceived. Pay attention here. And hid herself 5 months. Okay. So Elizabeth conceived and hid herself 5 months. So at this point of time, right here, we have a date. Okay, so keep your focus on Luke 1:24. Hid herself 5 months. So it's safe to assume that she may have been in her 5th month of her pregnancy here. Okay. Thus hath the Lord dealt with me in the days wherein he looked on me to take away my reproach among men. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee. Okay, so here we have Elizabeth conceived and hid herself 5 months. Okay, so here we have a safe conclusion that she was 5 months pregnant right here. It didn't give a time frame of when she was 5 months pregnant. It just said she hid herself 5 months. So it's kind of safe to conclude that she was 5 months pregnant at this time, just by this statement. But now, and in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. Okay. Now, I want you to pay real close attention here, because this is where it kind of gets a little tricky. Okay. It was in the 6th month the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee. Question: is this the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, or is this the 6th month of the year, which would have been our September/October? Let's continue. And the angel came in unto her and said, Hail, thou that art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said unto her, Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb, and bring forth a son, and shalt call his name Jesus. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David, and he shall reign over the house of Judah forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end. Then said Mary unto the angel, How shall this be, seeing I know not a man? And the angel answered and said unto her, The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the Highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God. And behold, thy cousin Elizabeth, she hath also conceived a son in her old age, and this is the 6th month with her, who was called barren. For with God nothing shall be impossible. And Mary said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. So, behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. So Mary was conceived in the 6th month of the year. And in the 6th month of the year, Elizabeth was in her 6th month of pregnancy. Okay? So basically, what we have is Elizabeth either conceived in the 12th month or the 1st month. One or the other. Which would have put her 6th month in the 5th or the 6th month of the year. At that time, Mary was conceived at the 6th month. Now, all you have to do is add 9 months to the 6th month of the year. And what do you get? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. You get the 3rd month. And if you go back here, the evidence points to Jesus being born in the period 5 BC from March 9th to May 4th, probably around Passover time, 5 BC, April 13th to the 27th. Okay. So again, you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So anywhere between the 1st and the 2nd month of the year, possibly within that time frame, which would have been from our March to May 4th, anywhere within that time, you would have the birth of the Messiah in 5 BC. Okay? Because again, you have to look at the dates very carefully in Luke 1. Okay? Elizabeth hid herself 5 months, right? That's what it stated. And then the angel Gabriel visited Galilee in a city called Nazareth in the 6th month. At the same time, told Mary that she would conceive, and then Mary acknowledged, said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it done according to me, according to thy word. So therefore, in the 6th month of the year, she was conceived. At the same time, Elizabeth was in her 6th month of her pregnancy, which would have put John's birth possibly around, in our Gregorian calendars, anywhere between December and January, somewhere around there. The birth of Christ would have been anywhere between March, April, maybe the beginning of May. So I mean, it's just, I mean, you got to look at the dates very carefully. I mean, it's not a salvation issue, I don't think, but I think a lot of people get the numbers mixed up when they look at Luke 1. It can kind of be hard to reconcile these things, but when you look at it very carefully, it seems clear that Jesus was not born in the fall. He was born in the spring. Okay. And so that's the unique little mystery of 5 BC right here. This was basically I mean granted, you had the events of Herod, and slaughtering all the male children, 2 years and under, and these types of things. You have that event. Um, so there was a lot that went on within the last 10 years of the BC era. Okay, but for the most part, the 62 weeks were really, really quiet until the birth of the Messiah. Now, the birth of the Messiah, mind you, does not start the 69th week. Okay? Because, see, this is where a lot of people like to make their claim that, okay, well, Messiah the Prince, Jesus is born. So this must be... So the fulfillment of Jesus being cut off must be at the 69th week, because Messiah was born. But was he anointed? That's the key thing. Was he anointed? We're going to get into that. I'm not going to spoil it for you in this video. We're going to get into that when we get into the 70th week. Okay? So... And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. This is going to conclude our study. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. So we're going to kind of skip through time here a little bit before we come back to the 70th week in the third video installment of this study. Because a lot of this is, as a matter of fact, all of it really culminates within the last 4 years of Jerusalem, or the last 7 years of Jerusalem, 4 to 7 years of Jerusalem, these types of things, and things that happened within that time. So we're going to come back and talk about that, but for now, we're going to conclude with this line here. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. Now, what did I state at the beginning of the video? We have 7 weeks, 62 weeks. Put that together, that's 69 weeks. Okay? All 3 of these segments are all together. There is nothing spaced out between either one of these events. There's no gap between the 7th week and the 62nd week. And there is no gap between the 69th week and the 70th week. Okay? And all you have to do is look at the careful word here, after. This is after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. After means after the 69th week. So after the 69th week, we have what? We have the 70th week. So Messiah is to be cut off in the 70th week. Does it have to be at the beginning of the 70th week? No. Matter of fact, as we shall soon see in a video to come, you'll see that in verse 27, you can look it up for yourself, that he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifices and oblations to cease. And he caused the sacrifices and oblations to cease in the middle of the week, which was after the 69th week. Has nothing to do with the Antichrist. Antichrist doesn't confirm a covenant with anybody. Maybe he confirms a covenant of death to those that will follow him, and that's his covenant. A covenant that's going to lead to the broad road to the lake of fire, maybe that's his covenant, all right. But it has nothing to do with the verse 27 in Daniel 9. So, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And that word cut off comes from the Hebrew kerat, which is a primitive root to cut off, down, or asunder, by implication to destroy or consume, specifically to covenant, that is, make an alliance or bargain, originally by cutting flesh and passing between the pieces, be chewed, be confederate, covenant, cut down, off, destroy, fail, feller, be freed, hew down, make a league, make a covenant, lose, perish, in other words, be killed, utterly, want. And to close this off, we're going to see the same phrase used in Isaiah 53. Now, again, the whole context of Isaiah 53 really begins in Isaiah 52, verse 13. Okay? You know, that's the whole thing. You know, sometimes the chapter divisions can be a little tricky because you automatically assume because it's a new chapter, you're onto a different subject. But you really have, you know, that's why sometimes it's not always good just to use one verse. Okay? Sometimes you gotta go a couple sentences above and a couple sentences below to get a context. And sometimes you have to go to the previous chapter. Okay? You know, because in the Bible, one chapter to the next doesn't necessarily mean a different subject. Sometimes it can be, but it's not always the case. Okay? So, we're going to read from Isaiah 52:13 through Isaiah 53:12. Okay? And this will close it out. Starting in Isaiah 52:13. Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled, and be very high. And many were astonished at thee. His visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations, the kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. Who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. For those masked in Judaism, it says man of sorrows, not men of sorrows. You know, that's singular. And acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs, and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he openeth not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was, there it is, for he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked, and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him, he hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. And that is going to conclude this video of the 70th week of Daniel, or Daniel's 70th week. So again, the Messiah was to be cut off from the land of the living for the transgression of his people. And that happened after 69 weeks of this prophecy was accomplished, which would have put this at within the 70th week of Daniel. And so therefore there is no room for an antichrist in this prophecy. There isn't any. There is no room for it. So why continuously be led astray by every wind of doctrine, regardless of how sincere someone may be? It doesn't matter how sincere someone is. It's how sincere your faith in Christ is, and how sincere your study of the Bible is. Your study of his word is. Not based off me, not based off any futurist or dispensational futurist out there, not based off of any Chuck Mislers, not based off of any of these prophecy teachers out here, out there, but based off of the study of the Word of God. Again, some of these people may be sincere in their teachings. They may be really sincere. But just because they're sincere does not mean they are infallible. Just because they may be sincere does not mean that perchance they could be wrong. Hey, perchance I could be wrong. But the weight of evidence is clearly on my side here. So again, we need to rekindle the fire of the Bereans and stop worrying about what others are teaching you, and just start to erase everything that's been taught and try to refocus and put all your refocusing in the study of his word, so that you will not be deceived. Truth be told, truth be known, stay safe, God bless, we'll see you next time, bye bye.